Hey guys, CJ here coming at you with a breakdown for yesterday's Captain America Civil War trailer number 2. It's going to be extremely thorough. I think I found something for every scene, but I'm going to move quick, so feel free to pause, rewind, and please ask questions below. So, let's get started with this first still, a Russian facility that appears to be where Bucky is being stored in cryostasis. Where this comes to play remains to be seen. Maybe Bucky wasn't on the run at the end of Winter Soldier after all, or maybe it's just part of a flashback. Whatever the case, all we know is that Captain America is seemingly in the same location in the next shot. The next sequence of shots is really interesting to me for a couple of reasons, primarily because it really shows off how Marvel has been building to this movie within the MCU slowly since the original Avengers. It details the cost and damage involved with each of the big final battles in Avengers, Winter Soldier, and Age of Ultron. The cool thing to me is in the top right corner of each image, as I've highlighted, they actually have cost and casualty statistics. The Battle of New York cost $19 billion and killed 74 civilians, the Fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. cost $2.8 billion and killed 27 civilians, and Sokovia cost a whopping $474 billion and killed 177 innocents. So you can see where the World Security Council, or whatever form of government Thunderbolt Ross represents, is coming from. In this shot, we see an explosion at a UN building, and then what looks to be Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa lying in the rubble. There's a couple of things that this could be, but in my opinion, it's most likely a flashback to an official visit from Wakanda to the UN in which King T'Chaka will wind up dead at the hands of Bucky, as has been rumored for almost a year now. That's not guaranteed. It could just potentially be something that happens, kind of real time as the movie happens, but kind of putting these pieces and these rumors together, that is what I think is the most likely case. This next scene is an important one as it ties in heavily with the original comic book storyline. This helicopter flies up and then lands in this structure that just rises out of the ocean. And in my opinion, they're going to take some original comic book stuff and kind of morph it a little bit to fit the movie. This is likely the Raft, a supervillain prison usually located outside New York near Rikers Island, and it'll likely take the place of Prison 42 from the Civil War comics. Now, in the comics, Prison 42 was a maximum security facility in the Negative Zone, built by Tony and Reed Richards and Yellow Jacket, interestingly enough, to hold the captured anti-registration forces. It was so central to the story because, after discovering the facility and realizing that his own fellow heroes are being held against their will, Spider-Man switched sides and joined Captain America. And it looks like, with the face that Tony is making in this scene, this might be in the middle of that pivotal argument with Spider-Man. Now, this next scene I want to point out first and foremost because of how badass it is, but how badass Black Panther is, and also just to talk a little bit about his powers in this movie. I've seen a lot of theories that he would essentially just be well-trained, or only minorly enhanced, if anything, maybe Captain America level, but here, T'Challa outruns Cap, he outruns cars speeding on a highway, and then catches Bucky, who's driving away on a motorcycle. Long story short, this dude has got the yams. This is another pivotal scene here as Rhodey is struck in the arc reactor by some sort of shell and then shot down, and the trailer kind of makes it look like Bucky does this, but in all likelihood it is probably someone else. This is central because it looks more and more likely that there's a good possibility that James Rhodes will not survive this movie. As far as character deaths go, it would be a big one, but not the biggest that Marvel could do, as fans have grown familiar with James Rhodes since 2008's Iron Man. I don't want to sound crass, but his death would be a relatively safe way to raise the stakes on the showdown by showing that it's not just a friendly scuffle. Some characters won't make it. Some characters won't survive this movie. They won't be in the MCU after this. Though there were rumors that War Machine would be part of the new Avengers team that goes forward in Infinity War, there's a real chance that he might not make it to that third Avengers outing. And if the rumors are true about him dying in Civil War 2, a new comic coming out in just a few months, this might be another example of Marvel trying to sync the comics and the movies together. But regardless, it seems that Rhodey's death, or near death, will cause a major tonal shift in the movie and in the battle itself. Shit gets real, guys. In this scene, briefly, we can confirm that the airport fight at the terminal map for Modern Warfare 2 takes place in Germany, as identified by the sign next to Bucky Barnes. Flughafen is German for airport, and it also sounds much cooler than airport. In this next scene, in some tropical location by the look of it, we see some goons attacking a compound called the IFID. What role this will play is unknown, of course, but IFID stands for Institute for Infectious Diseases. Some were quick to tie this with Sharon Carter's line about the infectious disease ward in Winter Soldier, but she was posing as a nurse, so I'd assume that they're unrelated. It's most likely this is what Crossbones' crew is attacking, but this may suggest that the face-off scene with Crossbones doesn't happen in Wakanda, as has been long rumored. Wakanda's big thing in the comics, one of their big things I should say, is that they're extremely isolationist to the point of xenophobia. So why there would be an international infectious disease outpost on their soil just does not quite make sense to me. On to the next one. I point this scene out primarily because Black Widow's allegiance and her alliance with Iron Man surprised me and many others because of how close her and Cap were in Winter Soldier and how close she is with Hawkeye. Iron Man's line, "They're coming for you," could certainly be referencing those two, but honestly I think Widow will double-cross Iron Man at some point, don't you? This scene I only added because of how emotional Tony is, maybe pointing to the fact that Rhodey will actually kick the bucket. This scene is pretty cool as Black Panther stares down a chopper that should be filling him with bullets. Why isn't it? Well guys, it looks like he will have his vibranium suit from the comics. This is an interesting scene as Scarlet Witch uses her powers to subdue Vision. Both of these characters were added in Age of Ultron and both seemed a bit OP. So the Russo brothers have really been talking up a storm lately about how they're both going to find their limits within this movie. But the really interesting thing here is that in this second shot, there's a body on the ground next to Wanda. And that looks a lot like Hawkeye. Maybe this is from the initial split and Vision will take out Wanda's mentor and Wanda will get pissed. We don't know yet. Oh, I had to highlight this scene because if only it is the famous Ant-Man on the arrow shot, and it goes to show how big the trailer was that such a huge fanboy moment was almost completely overshadowed, and I'm just glad we didn't have to wait for that until Infinity War. This next scene is interesting because while that attack on the IFID may not be in Wakanda, if these scenes take place close to one another, it looks like it is in Africa somewhere, as this fight looks like it takes place in what's supposed to resemble an African marketplace, the one we saw set pictures of a few months back. And Cap can do this all day, baby, a callback to where his adventure started way back in 2011's The First Avenger. This all, of course, brings us to Spider-Man, and there's more to dissect here than a simple appearance, as his showing up gives us a lot more to talk about than it might initially seem. First up, mid-flip, what's that on his wrist? Well, it looks like a mechanical web shooter, so sorry Toby, you're still the only one with organic webs. Seconds later, mid-flip, we get a brief glimpse at the back of the new outfit and what makes an appearance on screen for the first time ever. The fat red pill bug, guys, straight out of the comics, ripped straight from the page. Really, another big thing about why I love this costume so much. And lastly, the money shot, Spidey with the shield and the expressive size-changing eyes. The big thing here is Parker is a photographer and these eyes seem to be made out of camera lenses, but another big takeaway here, was that Russo brothers Twitter account real? And honestly, from everything we've seen, it kind of looks like it. So that wraps it up for this extensive breakdown. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did I miss something? What was it? Signing off, this is CJ, and I'll see you next time.